So let me just ask you about criminal justice for a second. It's no secret that America has the highest incarceration rates in the world. As someone who wants to be public defender, this issue is close to my heart. And to give you the trans context of this issue, there's a report from the Indiana Journal of Law and Social Equality, as well as the UCLA Journal of Gender and Law, telling us of disturbing practices called V-coding, right? Where corrections officers and administration force trans women to share cells with cis men that are known for aggression, sexual violence. And, these trans people have reported being abused and raped for months on end, like just living a life of threat and anxiety constantly when they're, in the prison system. And much of this has to do with putting trans women into male prisons, right? So can you talk to me a little bit about your criminal justice reform? And I have another specific example I'd like to talk to you after I hear your answer.
Yeah, I mean, in general, right, the US has a prison system that's focused on punishment and not at all focused on any sort of rehabilitation or or figuring out how to get people back out of prison and into society. One of the largest causes of people going into jail is just recidivism, right? We have no programs to get people out of jail and let them actually live a life, let them participate in the economy. And so you have a situation where folks who might have gone into jail from, say like drug selling charges, that's the only job available to them when they get back out of jail because we're not giving them any other opportunity. And again, this is one of those situations where our jail system is itself such a punishing kind of environment that in that sort of environment, folks who are minorities have it hardest, right? Like it doesn't surprise me what you said about trans people having such a difficult time in jail because it's set up to be kind of a survival of the fittest kind of environment, and many jails are run this way, as and it's absolutely horrific, right? It's a human rights violation in many cases. And when it comes to criminal justice reform, I think a lot of this, it's the entire system. Like it starts with, we actually need to figure out how to switch our prison, our mindset of jails to not be a place where you just cage people up, but how do you actually get people out of there and get them back into society and rehabilitate them, right? And then all the way up to like, how do we police in a way where we're not over policing, right? And
Yeah.
we're not just throwing people in jail for minor infractions, and we're not just throwing people, stopping people all the time. There's tons and tons of solutions out there through the whole criminal justice reform movement for how to do all this right. But what we lack is any political will to tackle it, right? There's this idea that we saw a little bit of uptick in certain kinds of crime during the pandemic, and everybody freaked out and thought we should just throw out all the, criminal justice reform stuff and we should just do a tough on crime strategy. But that doesn't work.
Yeah.
That's not actually how we solve this problem at its root at the end of the day. We have to invest. We have to fix the system. But then, of course, beyond that is the real solution to all of this is actually creating a society where we have more equality. We have a basic social safety net. We don't have people, falling into desperation just because they miss a month of their rent check, or they have a healthcare emergency, right?
Yeah.
We need to actually take care of people.
Yeah. So my next question is related, and it's also to do with how, as a congressman, you'll deal with local authorities, right? So Kamala Harris was both District Attorney of California and Attorney General of California. And while she held those positions, there were some truly shocking stories coming from the criminal justice field. For example, in 2015, The Guardian reported that a trans woman, Carmen Guerrero, who was in a California medical facility, actually, was killed by her cellmate despite the officers having multiple warnings. In April 2017, a transgender woman was found dead in her cell at Salinas Valley State Prison. As Attorney General and District Attorney, Kamala Harris had the power to do something about not forcing trans women into male prisons, but she didn't use that power. So how will you hold people that are, kind of under your purview in the sense that they're in San Francisco, but they're state employees and they're state politicians, people in the public view? How will you deal with that when you're a congressman?
Yeah, I mean, this is a place where my approach is really going to differ from Nancy Pelosi's, because Nancy Pelosi has really stayed out of the fray of anything local for years. And, she both hasn't engaged with her constituents for years. She hasn't done town halls, and she's really stayed out of trying to influence. I mean, other than like her machine politics, she influences the campaigns, but she's really stayed out trying to say anything about anything going on locally in San Francisco. I just think we're at a place where national politics is local, right? And a big job, I believe, of local elected officials is to defend marginalized folks, especially in a moment where Trump is, sending ICE agents out onto the streets and picking people up, right? And I think one of the ways we fight back against that is by having elected officials show up and confront ICE agents on the steps of the court, for example. And so I do see it as my job as a congressperson to basically use my platform to shine a spotlight on places where people are being ignored, right? And people's rights are being violated, and try to put pressure on local officials to do something about it when I can.
I appreciate that answer because it's an old adage, all politics are local. And I truly believe that because it's horrible to see how little influence sometimes people in DC can have on their constituents. Hey there, if you liked that video, then subscribe to my channel, click on the link in my bio to follow me on Instagram, X, and more.